The illusory truth effect. If you hear something often enough, you'll start believing it, whether it's true or not. This is the core of the illusory truth effect. It's why propaganda works, why fake news spreads like wildfire, and why we tend to believe rumors even when we know they don't make sense. But why does this happen? The human brain is lazy when it comes to truth checking. It takes effort to analyze every single thing we hear, so instead, we use shortcuts. One of these shortcuts is familiarity. If something feels familiar, because we've heard it multiple times, our brain assumes it must be true. This is how false ideas gain traction and how misinformation becomes widely accepted. Think about common misconceptions. Sugar makes kids hyperactive. Parents everywhere believe this, but studies show it's false. Yet, because it's repeated so often, people assume it's true. We only use 10% of our brains, a completely debunked myth, yet movies and self help books have repeated it so often that many people still accept it as fact. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. It does, very often, in fact. Yet, this false idea is repeated so frequently that it's accepted as truth. Advertising uses the illusory truth effect masterfully. You hear a slogan like, Red Bull gives you wings enough times, and even though you logically know Red Bull won't make you fly, your brain starts associating it with energy and alertness. Repetition in political campaigns is another huge example. If a candidate repeats a phrase like, We are the strongest economy in history, over and over, people begin to accept it as fact, even if data says otherwise. A study in 1977 by researchers Lynn Hasher, David Goldstein, and Thomas Topino proved this effect in action. Participants were shown both true and false statements multiple times. The more they saw a statement, the more likely they were to rate it as true, even when they had no evidence to support it. More recent studies confirm this. Even when people know a statement is false, repeated exposure makes them feel like it's true. This feeling of familiarity is powerful because the brain values ease over accuracy. Now that you know how this trick works, how can you protect yourself from it? Question repeated statements. Just because you hear something often doesn't mean it's true. Look for evidence and ask yourself, where did this information come from? Is there real proof? Expose yourself to multiple viewpoints because if you only hear one side of a story, you'll be more likely to believe it, even if it's false. Be aware of emotional manipulation. The more an idea is repeated in an emotional way, the more likely it is to stick. Repetition is one of the most powerful psychological weapons, and it can work for good or bad. Now that you know about the illusory truth effect, you won't be so easily fooled.